Have you ever noticed how some vehicles become more than just transport and become characters in their own right? Why do some cars have personality? Here's how I tried to create one for my own world. Alright everyone, I hope you're doing well. I hope it's not too hot where you are. It's a lovely 30 degrees in the studio today, so it's nice and warm. Today I'm going to be showing you how I created a car for my comic world. I'm going to be showing you the thought processes and how I created my own reference so I could draw it over and over again consistently. So back in 2014 I started drawing my own characters. I'd built up a bit of a crew and I thought it'd be fun for them to have a motor to cruise around town in. The project, which was more a bunch of ideas at this point, was likely period dating itself in the 90s, and I wanted a car that would match the feeling of the characters and the era. At that time the Max Power movement was in full force. For the majority of teenage lads, it mainly involved attaching expensive bits of plastic to cheap cars, slapping on some big alloys and adding a lot of filler. It all resulted in some very expensive cars that were often a bit impractical. While it was all fun and games, it wasn't really my bag. I preferred older cars with some subtle modding and a large drop on the suspension. None of this fitted my story. I wanted my car to do all the classic TV and movie stuff. I needed a motor that looked cool, could whip round town, lose the police in a scrape and fly well if it needed to. One Sunday I made the trip to Birmingham to the DTA car meet, where I coveted many old Beetles with the desired scraping floor pan, but none suited my crew. But this one car stood out. I looked around, but I kept coming back to this awesome little car. After a long journey home, I did a bit of research on the interweb. The little red VW Golf was created by Pippi McGraw at Muttley Racing, built on a 1970s VW Beetle chassis, modified to run a Mazda rotary engine. This thing was making a few waves in the car scene. This little bad boy ride was ideal for my lads. The hot hatchback was built for a decade until 1984, so there was plenty still alive in my chosen era of the 90s. It was fast, with several rally wins under its belt, and had a decent sized boot for big fat speakers. This was my first drawing of the car, which I liked, but I was kind of thinking, if I cram a load of characters in it, I want to see what they're doing in there. That part of the story is important, if not more important than the car itself. So I did some analog Photoshop with a printed out photo, and decided to make the windows bigger. And while we're at it, I got shot of all that wasted space that's underneath the car as well. Now often folks comment about car being like Mr. Incredible's car, and I get that, but the idea came from another Pixar film. I loved how you could see all the characters in the exaggerated window. This whole scene is what I had in mind for my characters. Now I've been in the advertising business for a while now. Drawing the same car in various positions ain't easy. You need a good reference, because if your angles are out, your drawing can start to look like a completely different car. Consistency is the key. Although the internet is awash with photos, you're kind of limited by other people. So initially I thought I'd hunt down a car and take loads of photos. But then I read an article all about this comic, Fight Club 2, drawn by Cameron Stewart. He built a 3D reference model of the Paper Street house to keep accuracy while drawing different angles. That's just what I needed. And so I thought of an unlimited source of reference. This is a Revell Mark I Golf GTI model. I chucked my box a long while ago, so this is a clip of an unboxing video I found. I'll drop a link at the bottom to the original video. If you like model builds, it's a good one. The model is nice, however I need to make it more Teef Fur. So, off with its head. I never filmed the build, but I've loads of photos. I started with a roof extension, a fair bit of model filler and a dash of primer. Also noticed the engine bay. I cut it all out and added bigger wheel arches. Inside I left standard, although I'm aware that when I'm using it for drawing, the seats probably should sit a little higher. Then I hit it with some red primer. I invested far too much money on some retro snowflake alloys and low profile tyres, which were period correct. Then I painted it blue, which I had mixed feelings about. The stance was nice though, but the colour bothered me, so I stripped it back to the primer. While sanding it to perfection, I dropped it, snapping the roof clean off. This gave me the opportunity to tinker with bits that I wasn't happy with, including getting shot of the trim. It was a pain to draw and I wanted a cleaner look. Then I scratch built a couple of unnecessary bits. The engine I wanted to look like a cartoon with a big turbo, and nothing says speed like a roll cage. I remember kids at college making them out of PVC plumbing pipes. And then it struck me, the colour of the time. Mint green. So I got myself a can and gave it a once over, and the name Minty was born. And this is the model as it is now. And yeah, it's unfinished, but it's purely a drawing reference. And it's more use to me as it is now than if it was a highly polished model. The interior is left in grey primer, so it's easy to photograph, and that's also why it's not glued in place, so I can get it out if I need to. I've also not replaced the windows, so the glare doesn't block the interior, and I've not fixed the wheels either. I considered this for a long time, but not having them attached allows me to position them freely in dynamic and sometimes comic positions that might otherwise be impossible. I often wonder about making a bigger one, or getting someone to create a 3D file for printing. Maybe that's something for the future. To use the model as reference is a fairly simple process, but it can take quite a lot of fiddling about to get the desired pose. And once I'm happy, I take a snap and drop it into the desired app. I'm going to use Procreate for this one. Once I've imported it into the app, I make a few tweaks to the photo of the model just to make it a bit more dynamic. I straighten up to make sure it looks like it's grounded on the floor, which isn't always important, but for this one it is. And then I head into sketching over the top. Sometimes I'll use it as reference, sometimes I'll trace it. Tracing gets a bit of a bad reputation, but in professional storyboarding, it's just another tool. Cars and buildings can take hours to construct accurately, so reference is used all the time. But I always create a sketch first, and then I use that as my drawing base. I'm not trying to create a photorealistic replica. I want it to have my personal flair to it, so I feel the best way is to work backwards a little and not directly draw straight over the top of the photo, but use it as a guide for scale, proportion and angles. Once that's nailed down in the sketch, then I can get on with the fun job of lining it all. I hide the photo for much of the line work, but I do give it a second look for lighting reference. Cars have a lot of weird angles, even on a boxy car like this one, the light is all important to the shape. Whilst I've used a real model car, I feel that between the model and the drawing I've made enough personal modifications that I feel that I can now call it my own, at least once it's drawn. Looking back now, Minty has become much more than just a drawing reference. It's one of the cast, just like Teef Fur or Copper and Stripies. It's got its own personality, and honestly I couldn't imagine Teef Fur without it now. And that's how I turned an idea into an unlimited reference model to draw pictures like this consistently over and over again. If you've been enjoying the unfolding of the Teef Fur story, please give the like and subscribe button a little tap. I really do appreciate the support for my project. It really does help keep me and the project rolling. Thanks for your support, and I'll see you next week.